Hi friends, hope you're doing fine. In this video, we will show you how to set up Cronometer, so that you can track your calories and macros, all within a ketogenic diet. So first of all, just go to cronometer.com and click the sign up button. And yes, it is free. On this page, you have to enter your personal information. I will just create a random account, as an average male. The email address and the password are your login information, so make sure that you have written it down somewhere. Maybe put it into a text editor. Okay, enter your email address and your password. Alright. Make sure your login data is the same as in your text file. In this next section, we have to enter some basic body measurements. This is necessary to get an approximation of body fat percentage and caloric intake. So, let's say we are a male and born in 1970. Our height is 180 centimeters, which is 5 foot 11. And our weight is 90 kilograms, which is roughly 200 pounds. The last step for the sign up is one last click here. We only need to agree to the terms of service, that's all. Let's check our email, to click the verification link. There it is, here is the link. And now we are finally done. So this is your dashboard. But the information here is not really what we need. The part of Cronometer that we will use the most is the food diary. So we simply click on Diary. So here you can see your meals. With this button, you can add your various food items. This section here tells you about your calories. And when you hover over the circle, it tells you your macro percentages. This is very important, especially for a ketogenic diet. This circle in the middle shows you your burned calories and the right one shows you the calories that you are still allowed to consume. This section here tells us more details about our calories and macros. As you can see, it is divided into energy in kilocalories, in protein, net carbs and fats. Scrolling down here, we can see the target values of various micronutrients. This section also includes a more detailed view of different sources of carbs, fats, and amino acids. If you follow the RockSolid diet, this information here is extremely important to you, the total amount of omega-6 fats consumed. These fats, like linoleic acid, belong in the broader category of polyunsaturated fats. So now you are familiar with the main page on Cronometer where we will enter our food items. But, in order to maximize functionality and minimize confusion, we have to make a couple of changes. We will begin with all those meal sections that we don't need. 4 meals is not really recommendable for a calorie-restricted diet, let alone that it tells us implicitly that we have to eat breakfast or a snack. So, in order to change this, we go to More and Display. We scroll down to Diary Group Names. Here, we simply uncheck groups 3 to 5. Then, we rename Group 1 to Meal 1 and Group 2 to Meal 2. If you really think you need 3 meals a day, you can of course change this later. But as we are trying to do a calorie-restricted diet, 2 meals are probably the sweet spot. As with more meals, the amount of food per meal will be very little. Okay, let's see if this has worked. We go back to our diary. And, yes, there it is. Now we only have 2 meal sections. Great. The next step is to modify these 2 sections here, the macronutrients and the energy balance. We have to modify both of those, to get ketogenic macros and a caloric deficit as the targets. In order to do that, we go to More and Profile and Targets. In our profile settings, you will recognize the data we entered when we registered our account. Sex, birthday, height, and weight are still here. And those values are the basis for Cronometer's calculations on some other variables. For example, as we see here, based on our details, Cronometer has come up with a body fat percentage of 32.5%. Now, if you do not work out with weights and you don't have a physically demanding job, this is probably true. After all, our weight was 90 kilograms, 200 pounds at 5 foot 11. But, If you do know your actual body fat percentage, or if you suspect that you have more muscle mass than the average guy, you can change those values. Simply click on Update and enter the body fat percentage that you think is more valid. Maybe you have only 25 or 20% body fat. We will introduce you to some options on how to estimate your body fat percentage in a later video. But for the sake of showing you the implications, we will keep the 32.5% value for now. We scroll down to the Energy Burned section. Here, Cronometer has automatically calculated our basal metabolic rate. With our details and our standard body fat percentage, this means that our body burns 1,760 calories a day. This is our metabolic rate when resting. Furthermore, it assumed that our lifestyle is in the category of sedentary. Sedentary adds this rate times 0.2 to our caloric needs, which adds another 350 calories. You should change this activity level if you think you are doing more than that on average. Like if you are working a job in which you move around a lot, or if you do lots of exercise. We will change our baseline activity level from sedentary to lightly active. This changes our multiplication factor to 0.375. Thus, instead of 350 calories, we burn 660 calories a day via our physical activity. In real life, this would be like an additional 90-minute walk. I encourage everybody to do at least this activity daily, as it lowers your blood glucose and also your stress. These are quite important things to keep in mind when treating cancer. Okay, with these settings, Cronometer estimates that our daily energy needs are about 2,400 calories. So this would be our calorie target, if we wanted to maintain our weight. But as we are planning to do a calorie-restricted diet, we are going to lower this value. Let's scroll down to this next section. Here we turn off the Include Exercise option, as we already included our daily exercise when we were switching our energy needs from sedentary to lightly active. You can of course turn this back on if you want. Now this is where it gets interesting, our custom energy target. When we select this option, Cronometer shows us our basal metabolic rate. We have to change this up. As we calculated before, our daily energy needs for maintaining our weight is 2,420 calories. Now we will calculate the energy for a calorie-restricted diet. Using a calculator, we are going to multiply the 2,420 calories with a factor of only 0.8. That means that we run a moderate calorie deficit of 20%. This should be enough to see results, meaning getting into ketosis quickly, as long as we keep carbs down and fats up. So, 0.8 times 2,420 calories equals 1,936 calories. But for the sake of practicality, we will round this up to 2,000 calories. Nobody can really track calories in the range of 50 plus or minus. Alright, let's go ahead and put the 2,000 calorie value as our custom energy target. Great. Now it's time to tell Cronometer that we are not following a carb-loaded standard American diet, but a ketogenic diet. Scrolling down here, we're going to change the macro ratios. We choose Keto Calculator, which will give us some options regarding how we want to do our keto diet. We switch the keto program from moderate to custom. We turn off the athletic bonus, which would grant us additional carbs. In the form field for protein per 1 kilogram of lean body mass, we leave this at 1.2 grams. This may seem a little bit high, but keep in mind we need protein for a functioning immune system, as well as for keeping muscle mass. You can and should do some experiments with lower protein numbers at a later stage of your ketogenic journey, in order to get better ketone numbers. We will talk in more detail about too low protein in the beginning of a ketogenic diet in a later video. Alright. We leave the upper limit for carbs at 20 grams a day. We also leave the next field as it is, meaning that Cronometer will only count the net carbs for us. Okay, these settings were by far the most important. Let's take a look at our diary to see the changes. Alright, as you can see here, Cronometer now displays the macronutrient targets according to a ketogenic diet. The protein and carb values are the ones that we just entered, and Cronometer automatically filled up the rest with fats. In our case, it will be around 180 grams daily. If these values are still the old ones, try to refresh the page. Sometimes it doesn't work on the first try. Here is our macro distribution. Let's try to add some food items and see what's going to happen. We click on the Add Food button and search for beef. Ground. We choose the one with the most fat, 80% lean. Down here, we can change the units and the serving size. Let's choose a large patty. The weight is 1/3 of a pound, roughly 105 grams. Let's make it 2 patties to get our protein reasonably up. Nice. Now we have already a lot of information to work with here. On the left-hand side, we see our calories. But more importantly, we see our macro distribution. The 80% ground beef contains 43% protein and 58% fats. No carbs. Remember, this is not the gram distribution, but the caloric distribution. We are shooting for 80% of fats or more within a therapeutic ketogenic diet, so this quick summary is extremely helpful. Let's take a closer look at our energy and macronutrient targets. With our 2 burger patties, our energy consumption is 530 calories. This is roughly 25% of our daily limit. The green bar is our protein target. We are already at 53 grams, with our target being 73 grams. So this meal is quite high in protein, as you can see. In the carb section, nothing has really happened, as muscle meat has 0 carbs. So our target of a daily max of 20 grams is perfectly intact. Finally, the fats. As we chose the fattiest burger, we are already at 34 grams of fat. But as you can see, this is still quite low for our daily target of 180 grams. Because we can't really eat much more protein, we have to add food items that consist predominantly of fat to get there. Hitting our target not only means that we get to our 180 grams, but also that we hit the 80% of fat within our macro distribution, which is the most important thing for proper ketosis. Alright, 2 more things about the layout, and then we're done with setting up Cronometer. We will declutter this area. You don't have to do that, but I like to have a clean surface with nothing distracting. Of course, these nutrient scores have some validity, but in the beginning of your journey this is just additional confusing information. Let's go to More and Display. We scroll down to Nutrition Scores and turn those off. Then, we can also turn off the highlighted nutrients. So now, with these quick changes, our home screen looks like this. Everything neat and clean. There is one last thing to implement, but only if you want to follow a RockSolid ketogenic diet, meaning you track and limit your omega-6 fats as much as possible. The first step is to make the omega-6s visible instantly. That means we go back to Display and scroll down, again to the Highlighted Nutrients section. We turn this back on. Then, we set everything to none. As item number 1, we change Fiber to omega-6. And we also turn another very important nutrient on, that very few people talk about, potassium. Potassium is an essential electrolyte, and keeping this in check with enough sodium will help you with the keto flu and low energy. Let's look at the final version of our Cronometer home screen. Now we have those 2 exact nutrients displayed on top and in a more prominent way. The omega-6s and the potassium, both in percentage values and in absolute grams. Now comes the second step in adjusting Cronometer to a RockSolid diet. We have to adjust the target of the omega-6s way down, as 14 grams is by far too much. Also, it is not really a target that you should hit. Rather, it is the absolute maximum. Imagine vegetable oils as gasoline. You don't try to get a certain amount in, you try to get in as little as possible. As a quick side note, manufacturers really do put vegetable oil in gasoline, at least in Germany. Alright, we head over to Profile and Targets. Scrolling down to the very bottom, we can adjust all our nutrient targets. We go to the Lipids section. And there is the omega-6 setting, within the polyunsaturated fats. The recommended intake is an astonishing 14 grams a day, while the omega-3 recommendation is a measly 1.6 grams. This is a bad ratio, especially considering that almost no one will get the recommended omega-3 amount. But everybody on the standard American diet easily reaches those 14 grams of omega-6 fats. So, we will change this to 8 grams a day. Normally, I would say that 10 grams is the upper limit, but we are trying to prevent cancer here, so 8 is a good start. When you are familiar with the concepts and the food items, you could and should lower this to 7 or 6 grams, while eating fish 2 to 4 times a week for the best cancer management results. We switch on the Custom Values toggle and click Apply. Going back to our diary, we can see the results. Hovering over the omega-6 target, we can now see that 0.8 grams of omega-6 equals 10% of our daily maximum. This means that Cronometer has already recognized our custom setting of 8 grams a day. You also see this here down below, in the General Nutrients section. 0.8 grams, 10% of our daily maximum. Alright friends, that's about it. We are done setting up Cronometer for a ketogenic diet, including the settings for doing it rock solid. I know this was a lot of information, so feel free to rewatch the video and repeat the setting up process at your own speed. You can do it. In the next video, we will show you how to set up some basic ketogenic meals, so stay tuned.